Space, the final frontier. Well, okay, not really. All right, take two. Here in the Mitten State, welcome to Code 47, bringing you all things Star Trek, spanning the quadrants, the best thing since the neutral zone.
All right, back again with episode 130 of the Code 47 podcast on the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. I am your host, Trek Lord of West Michigan, your humble servant, Charlie Carden, joined as always by the guy, my wingman on this Star Trek journey for 3 whole years now, just about, Mr. Peter Stein. Yeah, I know, right? Show's been around. It'll be 4 years this September. And as I've mentioned before, I've had a shifting period of different hosts. Aaron has been our most consistent host, but he's got a very busy life, so he's just with us here and there. But Peter's my guy. So I'm grateful for Peter. How are you this morning?
I'm doing all right.
Glug, glug, glug. That's what I like to hear. Sorry about that. But yeah, we are back with an action-packed show. San Diego Comic-Con happened since the last time we recorded. There was a Star Trek panel, and oh my goodness, a lot going on that Star Trek panel.
There's a bunch of stuff that happened.
You bet. So we've got a pretty robust news section. We're going to slide into talking about 3 episodes of Star Trek Prodigy, and then we're going to keep talking about Star Trek Deep Space Nine. But before we do that, the butcher bill comes due, as Leah Dama once said in an episode of Battlestar Galactica. Hell of a butcher's bill, Chief. We do talk, but no, this is a pleasant one because we're talking about our Patreon. Some absolutely awesome folks that contribute to us financially and spiritually, as it were. So it gives us the opportunity to make additional content, push out ad-free content, early content like this show always comes out 24 hours earlier on the Patreon than it does on the regular feed. So we are grateful for that. Those folks we added a little bonus shout out tier going forward. Our besties is Chris 1H1D, who's a guy who was just on our exclusive Patreon chat with us earlier this week. Super fun guy who's guested with us a bunch. Derek Trevelyan, who is my figure collecting partner here in the Grand Rapids area. And then we get into some folks I don't necessarily know personally, but we have Francie, XEP, and my Uncle Tim, which Todd wrote Charlie's Uncle Tim, and I put in his last name as Haran, who is very cute. He gave me a check for $24 last year. He said, I'd like to support you. So I signed up myself. So now I'm a Patreon. We're Patreons together. It's wonderful.
Nice.
Our nice regular folks on our Friends with Benefits level, which I talk about all the time, is John Sidorf, the awesome Phoenix Sisters Entertainment, friend of the show, Kelly Gentner up there in Wisconsin, and her partner, Crayley, Brendan Myers, Corey and HD, and Matthew Keel. And our superstar folks are the BFFs, the wonderful, nice family of the Twin Cities. Sean was on our Patreon cast earlier this week. It was my first chance to really meet him. But his kids are Stella and Henry. They always get the great shout out. So we're very grateful for them. Again, if you'd like to visit patreon.com/secretfriendsunite, try us out for 7 days. See if you enjoy the bonus stuff that we produce. Peter and I do a great show recently called The Facts Geek Life, where myself and a frequent collaborator like Peter take a genre show. We take a season and break down a number of episodes. We are just hitting the midway point of talking about Ron Moore's Battlestar Galactica, Peter and I, and it's been fantastic. So
it's a trip.
It is a trip, but a lot of other great bonus stuff on there, like a comic book based show that I do with Todd Oxford, my main partner, called The Spinner Rack, which airs on alternate weeks. So yeah, pop on over there again, patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. Try us for 7 days, and if you like it, stick around. All right, okay. Off with paying the bills and on to talking about the news. My God, San Diego Comic-Con was now just a couple weeks, but not even a couple weeks past. There was a Star Trek panel where we got 4 big things that I've highlighted. I'm gonna name them, and then we don't have to go through them every single tiny little bit, but I'll name them. I'll let Peter do the
and then
reactions.
We get a mini one, which is hilarious.
Yes, exactly correct. We had a 5-minute sneak peek of what I'm guessing is going to be the season premiere of Star Trek Strange New Worlds.
If it follows their normal pattern, probably.
Yeah. Now, we do not have a date yet for that, but due to the writer's strike, I would not be surprised if that nudges its way into 2025. But you know what? That's okay, because we do have something. I'm going to jump ahead in my notes here. We do have something confirmed for October, the 5th and final season of Lower Decks. There's a lot of people griping about it. Oh, God, how could it end? This and that. Look, all things end. Five seasons is a great run of anything these days.
It's one season longer than Enterprise, and
Exactly.
2 longer than the original. So you know.
Exactly correct. I have a personal stake in Lower Decks because I've met several of the actors, and they're wonderful people. I love Eugene, who we spent some time with on the cruise. Same thing with Tawny. Just great folks. A teaser for section.
Point.
Yeah,
Some point I'll meet him.
You will. I promise. Teaser for the section 31 Star Trek's first TV movie. Which we'll be getting again in an undesignated time.
Even though we had one that was a theatrical release that had the special effects of a TV movie.
Yes. Star Trek 5?
Yep.
Yeah, oh boy. Yeah, exactly. And we did get some great new cast members for the Starfleet Academy show, which I believe is going into production kind of as we speak. I know they were weeks away.
Short. If not next week, it's shortly.
Absolutely. So, Peter, jump in. Which one of these 4 things that you heard about has you the most excited?
The thing that has me the most excited is Lower Decks. I have been unabashedly a fan of Lower Decks. I know that it's silly. I know that it's not for everybody. But I love the fact that this show is goofy, but also really, really loves the universe that it's in and loves to make fun of it. It embraces the camp of Star Trek, and it's so much fun.
Big time. No doubt about it. I detected a little bit of a vibe that maybe Section 31 kind of wasn't for you. Were you not feeling it?
No.
Okay. Tell me about that.
Everyone who's listened knows I'm not the biggest Discovery fan anyway.
Yeah.
And so we're bringing a character that I don't like Discovery's take on the Mirror Universe.
It's way over.
It's a little bit. It's not the same as like the older takes.
Yeah.
And so as much as I like, why can't I remember her name?
You're thinking of Michelle Yeoh.
Michelle Yeoh. As much as I like Michelle Yeoh as an actress, like she's phenomenal.
Oh my God, yes.
I don't really like Georgiou as a character, not the Mirror Universe one. I really liked her when she was the
captain. Yeah.
Captain Georgiou.
Her brief spin. Yeah.
Her brief version of like the Prime Universe good character. I liked that.
Yeah.
I don't really care for this character, even with like the character development. Like she's been better, but I still don't like her. So it's one of those like I'm not really too keen on having a film that's focused on this character. Firstly, and secondly, this movie really felt tone deaf, in the sense that it's trying to be the Suicide Squad. And it's like, oh, we're bad guys and we're going to go do fantastical things. And it's like Section 31 is a clandestine organization that does the dirty things that no one wants to do, but they still see themselves as good guys.
Right.
So it seems to be like there's a miss here.
Yeah, and it took it to an absurd direction when Section 31 was featured very prominently in season 2 of Discovery, because they took it, the organization has existed throughout 3 programs. We got it in DS9. We jumped back to Enterprise, where we saw them a couple of times with a single operative.
Which is like, it's okay. It was a little bit of a stretch in Enterprise, but they kind of made it work.
It stayed within the boundaries, you know what I mean?
We're still secret.
And then they took it to Discovery, and then they're like, and now we're a separate space organization with our own ships. And it's just... Yeah. Oh,
and then they're bringing in like Rachel Garrett. I like Rachel Garrett as a character, but I'm afraid of what they're going to do with the character.
Right. And then that, it wedges the time period in that Lost era, which a lot of people are excited about. I could be excited about.
I love the Lost. I love the Lost era. The problem with doing it, then, if you look at all the visuals in this trailer, nothing visually matches anything that we've seen before.
Right. So it's could go in a direction like Discovery.
Discovery of reimagining everything, and the thing is, like, while I don't agree with it, I understand why reimagining some of the stuff in the original series makes sense for modern audiences.
True. Yeah, in Strange New Worlds, I think that they haven't.
You really don't need to with the stuff right after the Undiscovered Country in between the Next Generation,
because it's still. it's still visually consistent. If you look at
Yeah.
Star Trek V, I know we just made a joke about that, but if you look at the sets, the
Yeah.
the bridge looks like what you would expect a Star Trek bridge to look like, and
Yeah.
it's the same thing. It's something that if you walked onto it, you wouldn't say like, "Hey, this looks like it's made out of cardboard." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they couldn't really take Pike's bridge from the cage and be like, "Now we're going to have a show on it in the year 2022."
I mean, it could, but you have to like. There's a way you could do it, but it's a little hard.
Right, exactly. So they took a path of kind of lesser resistance. They still put together a bridge that I thought was pretty great. So yeah, reimagining. But yeah, I'm with you that my fear about the Section 31 is that it's going to be more Discovery-ish, where we just need to be like, we're messing things up a little bit. Because yeah, I mean, Discovery, that first season with their take on the Mirror Universe just didn't really jive, because it was contemporaneous with what we saw from the original series, which was just what you saw in the original series, but just flipped upside down.
Yeah.
So I just don't know. All right, the Strange New World sneak peek looks like a lot of fun, but that show just generally with the exception of and again, this puts me in the hot take category. Not a lot of people agree with me, but I didn't enjoy the musical. That's about the only segment
I didn't either.
that I just really didn't care for. Todd and I really didn't like it.
I think for me, part of it was just the eclectic mix of music. If it was something consistent, it would have been better. For me.
Yeah, and it's not that I'm not a musical guy. Music is my other huge passion. I've worked in
musicals all the time.
Yeah, I was a part of musical theaters in high school. Music is my life too. But yeah, I didn't love the songs. I mean, they got added to, I think, my Amazon Prime Unlimited, and I skipped them when they come along because I don't want to hear them anymore. But yeah, I think Lower Decks is not going to disappoint. Obviously, this is probably the second episode, because the first episode we have a cliffhanger to resolve. So
that's true.
Yeah, we have a cliffhanger to resolve. So that's kind of a big deal. So
yeah, I'm not sure what I think about this Strange New Worlds thing. Like, I know that they're up to shenanigans. They're just bringing back a thing that I'm not the biggest fan of, which is that DNA modification thing. Mostly because the way that it's used here is different than how it was used with Spock in season 1, where all of a sudden now not just features change, but like hairstyles change. Which, okay, whatever. But
yeah, it seems
personalities alter, and then all of a sudden they become speciesist, which is just very. I don't know. I don't like the idea that the DNA that quickly alters the personality, because I think the personality is something that's not tied to the genetics. Sure. And so the fact that they're doing that is just, as a philosopher, this bothers me.
I get it. And yeah, speciesist is a great way to portray it, because you're saying, well, all Vulcans behave the same way. Well, we know that they don't, because we've seen a wide variety of...
We have, but it does mean that the DNA that they use, they're now implying that Vulcans are by nature assholes, which...
Yeah, exactly.
And then it's like, oh, well, we're experiencing Vulcan emotions. Okay, but you shouldn't be able to control them if you're experiencing Vulcan emotions, because you don't have training to do that. Yeah. But again, suspense of disbelief. It could be fine. It's just this segment I wasn't the biggest fan of.
If they make it fun. All right, well, let's wrap things up by talking about, this was very unexpected for me, a big announcement of a lot more of the cast. Now we got some recurring and some regular cast members. Recurring ones are, not surprising, Oded Fair returning as Admiral Vance.
Which I'm totally happy with. Yeah. I love that character.
Absolutely. We're getting our absolutely delightful Tig Notaro as Jet Reno as a series regular, which I think is, unless I read this...
I must have missed that.
Yep, no, that is. Notaro will be a series regular with the last one, which is Mary Wiseman, Tilly, character I'm not fond of, but we'll let that go. Fair and Wiseman will be recurring. But the biggest surprise, and a delight simply because I've met this man several times, I've had fun conversations with him. He told my wife that he thought I was handsome, which I will carry with me till my dying day. I'm talking about Robert Picardo as the EMH. Let's face it, he's a computer program. They don't age, though they're going to have to write that in somehow. We've been enjoying him as Star Trek Prodigy, but he's going to be back on the show. as a series regular. Oh my God, he is a delightful human being.
Hilariously, there was a comment that like they decided that once they saw him in Prodigy season 2, and it's like,
Yeah,
then
yeah,
why did you cancel it, you
right,
goobers?
exactly. Well, I don't know. I don't know that Prodigy is dead. I think it was just it was
Well,
floating. It was floating.
it's in limbo, and there's a question as to whether or not it's going to get a season 3. But
Yeah,
it's just a weird one of like, well, then why did you drop it? And
right. Exactly. Yeah, put your money where your mouth is. But anyway, kudos to that. I love Robert Picardo. We do have other cast
I
members.
hope that he's at least able to, give input to his character so that the character is consistent.
I feel
That
like
sometimes with some newer, not so much with Picard season 3, but with some other stuff where it's like they'll reference legacy characters. And it's like, maybe your dialogue isn't that great.
But anyway, other cast members will include Karen Brooks, Bella Shepard, George Hawkins, Karam, Diane, and Zoe Steiner. And of course, series being headed up by Academy Award winner Holly Hunter with occasional guest star Paul Giamatti. So this is going to be a beast of a show. And I have my hopes and prayers that it's going to pull out of the dive that I personally felt Discovery was. I'm sorry. I mean, you and I, not huge Discovery fans. We're not missing, but Discovery does absolutely have its fans. And I want to always remind our listeners that we're respectful of that, even if you get Peter and I, we're of like minds about a lot of things, and we do have other people that come in and out of the show. We may not have loved Discovery, but that's okay, because it's there for you to love. We just don't happen to be the ones. But again, that's why we have over on Threads and on Instagram, Secret Friends Unite, at Secret Friends Unite, excuse me. And of course, I am at the C3. If you feel differently about it, drop us a line. I'm happy to read thoughts from people who listen to the show on our program. We're it's IDIC, baby. It's about keeping your mind open to the different possibilities. So that's great news. There'll be more news developing, but the show would be 3 hours long if we talked through all of the bits and pieces. But let's move on to talking about episode 6, 7, and 8 of the second season of Star Trek Prodigy, currently available on Netflix. They did a super dump on July 1, so all the episodes are available. Both Peter and I have watched them all, but what we decided is that we broke them up into groups of 3 so that we could have a little bit more time to talk about them, and it would also wrap us up in time for the October release of the final season of Lower Decks. So, without further ado, Peter, episode 6, take us away.
All right, episode 6, Imposter Syndrome. Hoping to hijack the Infinity before its scheduled destruction, Dahl and the crew create holographic duplicates to cover for their absence.
Ferris Bueller.
Yeah, shenanigans ensue.
Oh my gosh, it's the Ferris Bueller. I might have to put that in. So, all right, well, tell me how you're feeling while I try to name this episode.
Well, this episode is a bunch of fun where they're trying to figure out like, we need to capitalize on the message that we received in the previous episode. So they decide they're going to take the Infinity, and they're sitting there trying to figure out how they're going to do that. And then they find out that the Infinity is going to be destroyed by being thrown into a sun.
Oh man, I tell you, that's the way to deal with your vehicle issues. It's kind of like an insurance scam. Like, I got to get rid of my old car, so I'm just going to park it downtown and leave the keys in the ignition.
Almost, except this time it does blow. It's supposed to like disintegrate, but it's kind of funny. It's like, how do we destroy the ship? Well, we're not going to like set it to explode or just sit there and watch it. We're throwing it into a star.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Which
correct.
It works. It's just amusing.
Right. It would work if the kids didn't again steal something, which they do.
Which they do in the end. But it's hilarious where you have Rock and Jankum trying to program different versions of themselves, and first they're like, they don't work very well, and like Jankum is like climbing the ceiling,
and they're all glitching. Ultimately, when they use the holograms kind of turn on them. They're chasing them around, and there's a lot of this and that. And ultimately, obviously, when the kids escape, the holograms are reintegrate like they had to, because they were glitchy.
They rebooted them,
and rebooted them. But when they rebooted them, different personalities ended up in the wrong
Yeah,
avatar.
not the memories and not the names, but the personality matrix got switched, which lends to some massive goofiness in the next episode.
Absolutely correct. So, so this was I wasn't like over the moon about this episode because I felt like it was I noted it was a pass-through episode, and I said
it was kind of a we need to get from they figured it out to now they're doing a thing.
Yeah. And I said, you're not sure if there's going to be a payoff or if it's just shenanigans, because we did just get the shenanigans, which of course you can enjoy. I do continually enjoy the fact that Jason Alexander, or George Costanza, as I put in my notes, is the ship's counselor, and he's also a Tellarite.
There's a really funny line in there where you have Jankum has like this existential crisis because he thinks he's not the real one, because they do this thing with a replicator. Whoever can do it, fix it best is the real Jankum Pog.
Oh,
so
geez.
The real one that we know as the audience comes out and he's like, I don't know, who am I? What am I? And there's the counselor going like, oh, do you need to talk about it? I don't have time. He runs away, and the counselor's just like, you know what? I just finished my shift. I don't have time for this. I'm going to the holodeck.
He does, and the line is set tropical hot tub with extra bubbles. That's what I wrote down.
So it's just so silly.
Yeah,
it's great.
Yeah, I did right. I thought the holograms were a little too sophisticated, and the Zero hologram was also a telepath. I just like.
I think they said that it wasn't because they were like, I can't read you.
Oh, okay.
So the hologram didn't know that it wasn't telepathic, but it knew that it couldn't read people.
Right.
I think.
Right.
That was my take on it.
Gotcha. So I kind of gave this one a 6 out of 10. I thought it was just in between, and that there was kind of more to come. So how about you?
Probably 6.57. So I mean, not much more than yours. I enjoyed it, but again, it does feel like a people mover episode.
They had one of those in Detroit where, when I was a kid, my Uncle Chris called it the mugger mover. But downtown Detroit in the 1980s was pretty unsavory. So very, very different now. So much respect to our listeners, like our friend Josh Sherrill of the USS Motown over in SFI over in the city of Detroit. So love to see my hometown making a come around. All right. Well, as sometimes happens, when you go from mediocre can tilt really quickly into bad, which is what I personally feel like we get with the next episode. So episode 7 is The Fast and the Curious. After using a Borg conduit to travel through time faster, Dal and his friends find themselves at the mercy of a demanding Kazon.
Wait, that's the description. They're not traveling through time; they're traveling through space faster, so they spend less time.
They using to travel through. It does say travel through time.
Yeah, it's definitely a transwarp conduit, not a time travel conduit. Maybe
it's a knock on you, memory alpha. Yeah, exactly. Not mind it. Well, actually, one of us could go in then.
I could fix it.
So there you go. Yeah. Make note of it. So, so now we're going through. I wrote shortcut time going through a Borg transwarp hub, which is just lying around, but it's still.
Yeah, they said that there's dormant Borg tech, which I'm not.
But if it's dormant,
it's a little bit of a weird. I mean, dormant Borg stuff always works. It's just a little weird that it's like dormant, because it's like we just had the Borg in season 1, so obviously the Borg are still around doing stuff. So why is it just? I don't know.
Yeah, because it's before their big Waterloo is at the end of obviously the 3rd season of Picard, but this is also not that long after what we thought was their Waterloo at the end of Voyager. Well, I guess it's several years, but our gang's going through the transwarp. A MacGuffin device pops out inside of it and slaps them on the ship and forces them out of warp to some random planet. And that's when things really take a big tilt, because they land and he's like, oh, this MacGuffin is a Kazon device. And I'm like, whoa. Let me just take you on a little Kazon time travel in the Wayback Machine.
Strap yourselves in, boys.
Yeah, exactly. Kazon, this came from season 2 of Voyager. The Kazon were a refugee race of slaves that were ruled over by a race called the Trabe. Okay, and this was in an episode, I think it was Alliances in season 2 of Voyager. The Trabe, having had the tables turned on them, they became the species on the run, and the Kazon, with all their little factions and segments and stuff, were ruling that part of space. You find out that everything the Kazon they stole from the Trabe. There is no Kazon technology. And there's certainly no new Kazon tech. So yeah. And I wrote that they were just kind of a janky ass group of dummies. They were not masterminds. They weren't like, I'm a great Kazon scientist. I mean, they couldn't make a replicator work even after they
No.
stole it. Just the Kazon sucked. It was a reason you never really saw them again after season 2.
There's
They
a
were just,
reason no one really likes them.
yeah, they were a villain that they tried out, which Voyager had several. Each show had several. The Ferengi were supposed to be the big bad of TNG in the first season, but
And they were so much of a joke that they couldn't
yeah,
do it.
that they became and they transitioned them into being something else, but that just really doesn't work for this. So I literally call bullshit on the rest of the episode at this point.
Pretty much.
That just really yanked me out. I mean, the whole thing turns into, the Kazon guy wants him to do this race, with thus the name of the episode, a riff on the Fast and the Furious. And it turns out there's like a Landru style computer running things, and it tries to overtake Zero, and to destroy it, Zero has to throw himself into it, and it cripples his suit. So that's obviously running things forward. The part of it back on Voyager where we have weird time tendrils that pop out and they grab
that's the only really plot relevant thing in this
exactly.
episode.
Otherwise, this is just a total loser, and I don't have a lot more to say about it. I mean, do you? It just was a real dud for me.
I don't have a whole lot more to say. I mean, the only thing that we really get is some more development, sort of the Dahl really wants to be captain, but really shouldn't be because he's a little bit too impulsive.
Yeah.
Which we've known for since like episode 3 of season 1.
Right.
So that's not a new thing. But so outside of that, we really don't learn a whole lot or know a whole lot more.
Yeah.
I mean, I was sitting there grinning a little bit because it's a supercomputer like Landru Agamus, and so I'm just like, another computer doing weirdness. Okay,
is it the come for the festival? Yeah.
Yeah. So I like that was funny. That was funny to me. Because back on Voyager we don't even get much of anything other than Majel trying to talk to Gwen, and then finding Gwen missing after there's a time stop, which that's the important part. But other than that, the rest of this episode is kind of the Kazon are robots because the computer is creating things to just race, and there's no real reason to why this is continuing to keep on going. Other than I seek perfection. Okay, so you're sort of trying to be the Borg, but you're not.
Right.
So
it's kind of a Borg. Oh God, I just came up with a Borg Miller Lite. There you go. There's the name of the episode.
There you go. Yeah. Borg filler Lite.
Borg. Oh my God. Borg filler. Sorry, I know this is great radio. Borg filler Lite. There you go. Oh my gosh. All right. So this was like it was a 5 out of 10 for me. This is a cheap Fast and Furious knockoff, and Fast and Furious is terrible anyway. If you don't agree, please fight me on the internet. And revisit.
It kind of have the same thing of like the thing that I wanted to save is my family. Boom.
Yeah.
So
I think revisiting the Kazon is like a really poor overreach trying to get back.
I mean, the Kazon were in season 1, but they were like background,
right? And they were slavers, which made sense because all of our people worked in like a Kazon mining camp. Didn't they? Am I remembering correctly?
Yeah.
So leaving them there is good. Bringing them back, like I said,
making them like, oh no, they're bad. I mean, the way that I took Jankum's line at the beginning was like, oh, it's the Borg. No, it's the Kazon. Oh, that's worse. It was more of a, yeah, they're not good. But that's not kind of how the line was meant, unless it was like a double meaning sort of wink, wink at the audience. I don't know.
Precisely. So, all right. Well, okay. Well, let's finish it up with our little. We've gone through these kind of quickly. Let's finish up with episode 8, which I thought was a nice turnaround. So take it away.
This one's an interesting episode. So, episode 8, Is There in Beauty No Truth? Which is obviously a twist on the old TOS episode, which also has to do with Medusans. In Truth, Is There No Beauty?
Yes, their debut.
Yeah. So
which also had Diana Muldaur in it.
It did.
Who later becomes Dr. Pulaski.
And who later plays another character in I can't remember the name of the episode.
The Sargons. Yeah. It was The Return to Tomorrow, maybe?
I think so. I'd have to look. Anyway, the crew detours to a colony of non-corporeal entities who offer Zero an opportunity to obtain a physical body. Meanwhile, on Voyager, Janeway discovers Dahl's real intentions,
Retro.
mainly discovering more issues of what they're getting into.
Yeah,
So,
right.
intentions are clear. The shenanigans, she has uncovered the shenanigans.
Now
So-
I'm gonna jump out here, and I'm gonna take something controversial. We know that pronouns are a very big issue in the world today. I don't have a stance on that, besides the grammatical, because I'm a journalist and an English major, English major adjacent. The perfect use of they to describe Zero totally works for me, because he's a non-corporeal being, thus no gender. And it is kind of a weird, like, it still feels like an insult.
It's objective. It's in the sense that it's an object, not a person. It's not personal.
Right.
It's not a personal pronoun per se.
I'm gonna leave personal pronoun politics and all those things outside of our show, because I don't feel it's appropriate to talk about it. That doesn't work for me. But I will say that the use of they when describing Zero totally.
I've figured. I felt that it worked pretty well for Zero most of the time. There's just a couple moments in this episode and a couple times where occasionally they decline it weirdly.
Yeah.
So it's like themselves. It's like it would be themself in this particular instance, the way that you're using it, but
still not with the great. I know.
For Nazi part of me, just sometimes when they're doing goes, no.
In that case, I like to simply call people by their names.
Yes,
you can't go wrong with that. And yes, in whatever name that they choose to call themselves, whatever it is. I don't know. It's not my thing. But regardless,
anyway.
This is kind of nice. So I'm trying to remember, because I guess I had to make a note of it. So they get back in the Infinity. Did they get back in the Borg transwarp conduit?
No, they're just traveling normally at this point,
Okay,
which is interesting. You'd think that they want to go back in the conduit, but
they're still in the. I would assume if they're traveling but it's transwarp, so they could have made their way closer back.
Yeah, they're a lot closer than they already were, so
Right,
it's definitely shortened their time. It's just we don't know how close they were and when they got kicked out.
Gotcha.
But they're traveling normally at this point. At least that's how it looks from the viewports. So.
Right. So yeah, they found this great colony of non-corporeal beings. I just call them NC in my notes, which is that means Newt Capricorn on our Battlestar. It's not the same.
Obviously, they name dropped several different non-corporeal races. At the
that was really, and I should have written them down, but I didn't.
They're Paxans, Medusans, Corellians, or
no, it was the Cytherians.
Yeah, something like that.
Absolutely. I do think it's kind of cool that these NCs have avatar bodies that are vaguely looking like the ones from the movie. They're not quite as blue, but they're tall and lanky, which I mean, it's cool. I think the producers of this show do a great effort in reaching out to connect this to other things in pop culture that are also very popular. There's a lot of aspect of Star Trek Rebel, or like Star Wars, like Rebels in this, or Bad Batch, and now it's Fast and Furious, and now it's Avatar, because again, this is a show for children, literally. So finding ways for them to associate, like, oh yeah, hey, this is kind of like Avatar, but it's still part of the show I'm watching. I think that's very smart. I think that's pretty impressive.
And it's also fun how they have like the pods, like the pods in Avatar. They do look like it was reminding me of something from Alien,
right?
But which is a completely different thing. Just the layout.
Don't need to take your kids to see that.
Yeah, just the layout, but but like the pods where they create the bodies was very Avatar-ish.
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely love that, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is the first time now back on Voyager, on the holodeck, I feel like the first time we're ever seeing Parisi squares in the real world.
It is. It's the first time that we've seen Parisi squares. I have seen a rendition of the field that I used in a fan animation, which is very different.
Yeah.
This one I'm actually quite a fan of. It's one of those like, hey, we've never seen this before, and here's the hammers and everything, and it bounces, and you can see how it might be dangerous.
This goes all the way back to 1987 to the
season
first
1
season of TNG. where it got a mention. Actually, 1988, it got a mention in the 1000 episode where they had
Yep. Tasha Yar and company
Yeah.
coming wearing blue jumpsuits.
Yeah, and those are cool ass jumpsuits. Shit, I'd take that cosplay. That's pretty awesome. Yeah, Starfleet has great athleisure wear. I will tell you that.
They
right
do.
now. And I would wear that shit. Like I wear a lot of stuff from a brand called Zaya, which is a brand that April has sold from time to time. Nice stuff. Zaya, listen to me. If you get, at me on social media, I can help you make a line of Star Trek athleisure wear, and I think it would be the bomb.
Hey, there is a market.
There is a market. I'd be very interested. But yeah, we get so back on the non-corporeal planet. Z wakes up and now they aren't just a nobody, which is another joke.
Which was one, but thankfully everyone groaned because it was a bad joke.
Yeah, exactly. They have the Feast of the Senses belching contest. That works.
That was funny.
Yeah, that works.
It's definitely a kid's joke, little boy joke, but it was funny.
And but anyway, there's a feats of strength contest, which is the kind of the running of the Nazimond, which is this big ass manta ray that's got to chase him down.
It's like a whale that's eating flowers, but if you're in the wrong spot, you get swallowed.
Right. And it's the challenge is to get to the other side. We were able to execute this. Dal gets snatched at one point, so there's a little peril when they got to rescue him. But at the other end of it, Z is faced with the choice from the other NCs. They say, well, the strength of your avatar comes from this planetary atmosphere, blah, blah, blah. It's kind of like the Fountain of Youth or the Grail Temple in Indiana Jones. Like, you've got to stay here. If you want to be eternal, your body will start to degrade. And he said, I really just want to be with my family, so I'm going to go. And I thought that was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
So
an interesting twist in this episode, though, is it's kind of the opposite of what most Star Trek things go for with non-corporeal, or what a lot of science fiction goes for with non-corporeal beings, is that they are the next step of evolution, that they're somehow better. It's sort of a transhumanism.
No.
But this idea, the idea that's positioned in this episode, which is interesting, is that there's something lacking without a physical form, because you can't fully experience reality.
Yeah.
And so there's something very interesting about the fact that this episode took that as its kind of base message. Mm-hmm. Interesting because it flies in the face of how things are normally taken with these sorts of beings. But also it's interesting because it helps with like younger people, or people in general, like, hey, there's something beautiful about being you. There's something beautiful about being this that you can touch, being able to touch other people, being able to see things, being able to touch things, taste things, do that belching contest, that sort of thing.
Right.
So it's really interesting how this one is very, very positive about the nature of physical existence. Because some of us in the modern day just tend to live in our minds so much. We're so detached. We're living in the digital world with computers and games and all of that stuff. But this episode is like, no, there's something really good about being outside, or being out and being real with other real people. And so there's something.
It's a great example. Like yesterday, you joined me on the pickleball court. Had your first experience playing pickleball.
True.
There you go.
So it's like there's something really, and that's kind of why I think they did something with where they twisted around the title of the TOS episode. Yeah. Because is there no beauty? Is there in beauty no truth? Like, is there in our physical form? Is there not something that's true and beautiful and good? And so so this episode gets like really high marks for me because of that like underlying meta. So
yeah, I agree. Yeah, this was an 8 out of 10 for me. I thought the Avatar plotline, I contradicted myself in my notes, but I kind of turned myself around. I thought that got a little stretched out, but I also appreciate why it existed. But I did love at the end Z choosing to be with his family over immortality, because that's what, family first. That's who these guys are to each other, because they don't have anybody else but each other. So I really do appreciate that. So, well, good. All right. Well, Lower Decks or Prodigy is plugging along. So our next episode, we'll grab episodes 9, 10, and 11. And like I said, this will wrap us up just in time to return to our great segment, which is the random episode, which I'd like in the future, as we get into bigger gaps, I'm going to start reaching out to the folks on our Patreon Discord channel and our Patreon in general to help us choose those episodes. We do that via kind of a random chance. We grab a number 1 through 12, which is a series that'll have to grow now too because we have new shows.
Yeah, we got new stuff. We're gonna have to increase the number.
Yeah, exactly. But then you roll that, then you roll for a season, you roll for an episode, and then that's what you get. That way, we're always talking about something dictated by the hand of fate. But
hey, Secret Friends Unite, let me tell you about Zencastr. We use them for our show, and now they're supporting us. Zencastr is now the all-in-one solution making podcasting easy. It's the ultimate web-based podcasting solution. Provides high-quality audio and video podcast production and hosting. With a full suite of professional tools, podcasters can seamlessly record, produce, and publish studio-quality content, all from one dashboard. Being a creator has never been easier. And we chose Zencastr because of the ease of use, high quality output, and it makes it super easy for our guests to come on. We had multiple solutions we tried before, and Zencastr has just been the best fit for us. Why Zencastr? It's now super easy to record a podcast with Zencastr. Log in using your browser and start recording a high quality podcast right away. Record studio quality sounds and up to 4K video with your guests. Feel a sense of zen knowing Zencastr's multi-layered backups ensure you always have your recordings in the highest quality, even if the connection is unstable. Have you ever worried what you sound like? Zencastr's post-production process makes you sound buttery smooth. It automatically removes those ums and ahs in your recording. It removes those awkward pauses in conversation too. Set the right podcast loudness and levels while reducing background noise with a click of a button. So if you're interested in making an easy, high-quality podcast just with the click of a browser button, go to zencastr.com/pricing and use my code SFU1. You'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. I want you to have the same easy experiences I do for all my podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story. Now back to the show.
But as we move into segment 2, we're continuing along our journey in the 5th season of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. I mean, oh my God, we get into a block of episodes where things are intense and there's a lot going on. Yeah, this is coming in from early 1997. It was my junior year at Michigan State. Heavy duty into watching every week, and I had friends who were into it, and it was just this was the closer to the end of the golden era of the 90s Star Trek, because again it's 97 and DS9 still has 2 years left, so there's still so much more to go. We're not even into the Dominion War yet, though.
No, sometimes it feels like it, but we're not there yet.
We do, but I'm the first 2 segments are a 2-parter. I will read the summaries and we'll discuss them kind of as one. Episode 14 is In Purgatory's Shadow. Director is Gabrielle Beaumont, and I know that she was quite well renowned as being one of the first if not the first female director of anything Star Trek. She had a long storied career of doing this. This is Robert Hewitt Wolf and Ira Stephen Bear, so you got the best of the best right in this deal. By Inferno's Light is the next segment. Les Landau and Iris directs, and again Bear and Wolf writing this, both from February of 1997. Worf and Garrick journey to the Gamma Quadrant to investigate a coded Cardassian message. And in the second part, Gul Dukat aligns the Cardassians with the Dominion. The station must deal with the changeling infiltrator. Wow.
Yeah.
And again,
shit goes south fast.
This was one that you're like, because part 1 ends with the wormhole popping open and all these ships coming out. I know we're kind of putting the cart before the horse. And so you get this great, like, oh my God, I know it's only 7 days, but what's going to happen now? We're going to come back and it's going to be Battle Royale. And then, Gul Dukat running off to join the Dominion. I did not see that coming. But it does absolutely end up making sense at the end of it. But anyway, the episode starts out There's a coded message coming through that's from a Nabrantane that was Garrick's mentor, and so much more, as we learn in this episode and the next one. And so Garrick tries to steal a runabout and sneak off to into the Gamma Quadrant to find him based on this recording. He gets intercepted. Cisco says, Worf's going with you. And so Garrick is riding with Worf and annoying the shit out of him when they run into...
Which is classic Garrick.
Yeah, perfect
Love
stuff.
Garrick. It's, it works.
Yeah, Andy Robinson, who, again, I've met him on a couple different occasions through the cruise and cons. And I think he is our guest at Grand Rapids Comic-Con this fall, so we'll all get to see him again.
Ooh.
So definitely look forward to
I'm going to have to meet one of my favorite characters.
I guess. But anyway, yes. So they get captured by the Dominion by running into a bunch of ships. They get dumped in an internment camp where they find that the real Martok is here. He's alive. And as they all converge in a prison cell where they see that an Nabrantane is lying there dying, and we see our first... This is not the first time we see a Breen, but it's the first time we hear one. It's the first time we still don't hear one speak. We haven't gotten...
It doesn't speak at all.
Yeah, it doesn't speak at all. But there's a Breen and a Romulan, so it's kind of this,
There's two Romulans at the beginning.
Yeah, right. Yeah, bye. One of them gets killed really quickly. So it's kind of a united Benetton of a prison cell. But the last prisoner gets shoved back into the room after coming back from interrogation, and it's Bashir. The problem is there's a Bashir back on the station who is not a Bashir. That is the changeling infiltrator.
Yeah, I mean, of note, he is wearing the uniform that we only switched from about 10 episodes ago.
Not even. So it does show that...
It doesn't have to be that long, but it does kind of make it a little weird sometimes.
And we've also learned that, Star Trek uniforms overlap so greatly that you don't even necessarily know when people stopped wearing them. You never really saw those two uniforms, meaning the one that people watch us on YouTube that Peter's wearing now, which is the black and gray, or the Voyager Classic, which is the black jumpsuit
department color shoulder.
Yeah. Which is the uniform that has had the single most appearances, because it was 4 seasons of DS9 and 7 whole seasons of Voyager, plus appeared in Star Trek First Contact. And for my money, using the costumer that we use for our various cosplay, probably one of the best uniforms out there that they make, because for its accuracy, I think.
Yep, that one's the most accurate out of all.
But at any rate, yes, things start to... Dukat shows up on the station because he's going to help out. They know the Dominion is coming because Kira tries to go find them, and all their listening posts are going dead. And so, as I said, the wormhole pops open at the end of episode 1, and all these ships come out. And then we segue over to the first part of the next one. Everybody, Kira's on the Defiant. I love it how the runabouts come out like, we're going to help too. It'd be like if you had 3 kittens and a Rottweiler, and that's your defense force. You know what I mean? And then Dukat is the like a Chihuahua. I say that my dog is part Chihuahua, but the Chihuahuas are little beady eyes and they shit everywhere. That's Dukat.
Yeah.
But they
beat the crap out of a Klingon force, and the Klingons have to come to Deep Space Nine to get themselves patched up.
Yeah, exactly. So after it's revealed that Dukat is right, because he turns to run off and join them and reveals his true colors. Shortly after, Gowron shows up and he's all beat up, and Cisco says, "This is where Cisco is the history maker." He said, "You know what? This is the opportunity for us to put aside our differences. We have a common foe." And then he says, "I got a copy of the Kittimer Accords right here." And then and so he signs it. So the Klingon Federation kerfuffle is over. They're allies again.
Yeah.
So that's super fun. So everybody's preparing for an attack. And then
suddenly the Romulans appear.
Yeah, and the Romulans appear, which is never really addressed for the rest.
Since the Romulans were part of the original force to go try to attack the Founders' homeworld, you can understand, because the Romulans, as we know, listen to everything and try to be. Yes. They are up in everyone's business. They just don't like you to know that.
Right.
And so they just suddenly appear because like they're like, oh, shit's going down at Bajor, we're going to show up. So it's like
Right.
they are well across the neutral zone. They are nowhere near where they're supposed to be, and they just
If
Deep Space Nine.
that's what's crazy, because if you ever look at the galactic map, I have one hanging in my dining room. The Romulan Empire and where DS9 are couldn't be any further.
Yeah, they're like on the opposite sides of the Federation.
Yeah, exactly correct. You got to go through the entire Federation to get there.
Which is hilarious because it means that you had a fleet of cloaked warbirds just flying through the heart of Federation space, going like,
Right.
yeah, we're not up to anything. We're just going to deal with the Dominion.
I mean, for all you know, they could have taken the long way and gone through the north.
I mean, gone around, yeah.
Yeah, there's a north part that's kind of no man's land. But anyway, it's
funny.
Yeah, talk about fictional geography. But at the end of the day, the Bashir changeling hijacks one of the runabouts. He's got a protomatter to bomb.
Yeah, he's going to try to pull a Dr. Soren on the son of Bajor.
Yeah, exactly. Which they managed to stop him, and at the end of it, that was the whole plan. So it didn't turn out there was no Dominion fleet at all. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, it doesn't show up in
this
episode.
Yeah, it was a big.
They just wanted to get all of the Alpha Quadrant forces in one place and blow them up.
Right. And so Dukat comes back on. Now, during this, when Dukat left the station, he excommunicated his daughter, said, "You're not my daughter anymore because you want to stay here and you're in love."
And you like Garrick, who I hate.
Yeah, exactly. But then, Cisco says, "Well, you would have killed your daughter," and he's like, "I don't have a daughter anymore. Fuck you. I'm evil. Meh. Give me a mustache. Give me the mustache that his cousin. You know how his cousin had the mustache?
Those sideburn thingies.
Yeah. When Mark Alimo appeared as the first Cardassian in season 4 of TNG, he was Gomasset. So kind of twisted.
It didn't have quite a mustache, but it was getting close.
Yeah, it was just a touch the sideburns. I'm not changing the name of my
sideburns,
but yeah. I'd be tempted to change it to touch my sideburns, but I'm not. That's too weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, there you go. But anyway, pivotal two-parter. We will come back and discuss this one in depth as I have it planned on our schedule. In the distant future, once we get through the entire series, we're going to come back and explore most all of the two-parters as a really drill down. So we'll get into this. But for now, extremely important episode. I consider it as a one, and probably of this group of episodes, I'll go on record as saying this is my favorite, without a doubt. So we can get that out of the way. All right, episode 16 is yours.
Episode 16, Dr. Bashir, I presume. Directed by David Livingston. Story by Jimmy Diggs. Teleplay by Ronald D. Moore.
My guy!
Aired on February 24th of 97. Julian Bashir is selected to be...
Day after my 21st birthday. So here was me.
And you got to watch this episode.
Right.
Julian Bashir is selected to become the model for a long-term medical hologram, not to be confused with the emergency medical hologram.
Right. Until
a family secret is revealed. Our B plot includes Rom having difficulty in telling Lita something important.
Aww. How wonderful. What a wonderful... So we do get... talking more about Bob Picardo. He gets to play
Zimmerman.
He gets to play Zimmerman, who we met in two... we've only seen him once so far in Voyager at this point.
Yeah, we see him again later, I think.
His second appearance happens in like I think the sixth...
I think it's 6 or 7, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, he comes along as the real Zimmerman. We met him as a holographic Zimmerman in Voyager in season 2 when he was used as a patch to fix the doctor's program, which is great. Yeah, exactly. He's the digital Band-Aid. But yeah, he comes in. He's super obnoxious. He's rubbing everybody the wrong way. But he has to interview everybody to learn about Bashir, and we have kind of the classic interviewing everyone, but every shot it'll go to him and then go back and he's talking to somebody different, go back talking to somebody different. The best part of that is O'Brien saying, "So you're really not going to get back to him what I'm going to say, right?" "Yeah, no, it's totally confidential." He says, "Well, he's one of the greatest guys I've ever met. He's just a really wonderful guy, and he's like my best friend." He was like, "But you're really not going to tell him, right?"
Classic.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, the secret is...
Don't tell him that because I need to give him shit.
Yeah, exactly, all the time. The secret, Bashir does tell Zimmerman early on. He says, "Well, it'd be great if you didn't contact my parents because we're not close, and it just would be really weird."
And then Zimmerman, like the butthole he is like, "Note, talk to parents."
Yeah, and he brings them to the station, and Bashir is just, his face goes white, and he's like, because he really doesn't get along with his folks, and you don't know why until they inadvertently have a conversation with the
The
holographic
holographic version of him.
of Bashir, who's being produced, by saying, at no point will we tell him in our interviews that you were actually genetically engineered as a child. And everybody watching it was like, I'm sorry, what now?
I mean, Siddig El-Fidel was kind of the same way when he read that line in the script.
Yeah, exactly. And then so it's while this is all lingering before his plan is to then resign, because with someone with genetically enhanced abilities can't be in Starfleet, which it makes sense, the whole Khan thing, I get it. But he explains his life story to his best friend, Bashir. He said, I was essentially disabled as a kid. I was very slow, didn't understand simple things as a child. So by the time I was 7, my parents took me off world, and then they had this done to me, and my life really changed overnight. I got, I gained 5 IQ points a day for 2 weeks, and I just, they kind of right-sided me. So yeah, and he's like, I'm going to quit. And then he goes to Cisco's office to quit, and Cisco is on the Hollow Presence thing, which again, this is one of its lingering appearances. I feel like
it doesn't show up much more after this.
But it's the Starfleet JAG who's saying, I just made a deal with your dad, who's going to go to prison for what he's done. But then he said, it's a very serious deal. For every Julian Bashir out there who's good and uses his ability for good, there's another Khan waiting in the wings, and we just can't have that. But you're a good guy, and you got a great service record, and we want to keep you. But this was kind of a bridge that was needed to mend the rift between Bashir and his parents, because his dad is just very one of these. He's totally full of shit. He exaggerates. I mean, everybody knows. I know some cosplay photographers like that. They talk big about, I do this and I got this deal, that. A lot of them are really full of crap. And if the person who I'm talking to listens to my show, you know who you are, but you don't. So it's okay. But I'm thinking of one person in particular. I can't stand people who basically S their own D. Sorry, pardon me for saying so, but you know where I'm going. But that's basically what his dad is. His dad kind of thinks he's king shit, but he's accomplished absolutely nothing. But it is great to see somebody who is so self-obsessed finally step up and do the right thing. So I love that about this episode. The whole long-term hologram medical thing kind of goes away, and Zimmerman's like, well, I guess it's time for me to go home. And that's when your B plot manifests itself, because through all of this, Ram is trying to tell Lita, how he feels about her, because he's in love with her. And
which we already know that Lita likes Ram, because that was mentioned on Risa.
Right. Yeah, a few episodes back. But he finally does, as she's walking to the airlock to leave, because Zimmerman says, well, come back to me, to Jupiter Station, you can run the cafe, and you also get to see her naked from the back, which isn't such a bad thing. She's having a change of scene, Doug and him. And she's like, well, I don't have a better offer, so I'm just going to go. And that's when Ram finally drops by and says, I love you. And she says, Ram, I love you too. And they have a weird kiss with the mouth appliance that Match Grodin chick has, with the one tooth that sticks out. I'm like, I hope they pulled that out. I know I read a very famous, not related to this, but I read a very famous quote once that Terry Farrell kissing Michael Dorn as Worf and Dax got snagged on his tooth appliance and cut herself. And just like, ugh. I know, yikes. Talk about hazard pay. But yeah, a very cool episode. The Ram stuff is cute. The stuff with Zimmerman is great. And then the stuff with Bashir and his family is really very touching, about a character that we otherwise don't know a lot about their background until this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I still tend to agree with Siddig El-Fidel that making Bashir genetically modified kind of takes something away from him.
Yeah.
It's not the worst decision ever. Like, I'm not going to say, they never should have done it, but it's definitely something where there's moments where it makes you feel like some moments weren't as genuine, like Miles and him playing darts. There's a joke at the end of like, well, I wasn't trying as hard because
right.
Okay. So
okay.
I get it, but it's there's I don't know. There's something about it that doesn't quite work.
Yeah.
So again, I'm not gonna bemoan it. It happened. It's fine, but
Right.
I do tend to agree more with the actor that it feels a little weird. So
Yeah.
it doesn't necessarily change how the character behaves in the future. It just sometimes they do have to then like, oh well, he's can't do this now because of whatever reason.
Yeah,
So
right.
that's all.
Gotcha. That's wild. Oh my goodness. All right. Episode 17, please.
I think this one's yours, actually.
Oh gosh, okay. A Simple Investigation. John T. Kretschmer is doing the directing. Don't know him. Renee Echevarria does the writing, regular to the staff. From March of '97, Odo falls in love with the woman Arissa involved with the Orion Syndicate. Now, this is where we're starting to get a recurring sub-thread of the Orion Syndicate. We get that a little bit later in the season. Becomes a bigger deal in seasons 6 and 7, and then now it's become an ongoing, almost more of a gag, as most things are on Lower Decks, because of course, one of the main characters is Orion by race, so yes. You get a little bit of that. So I like that. So kind of a cool episode. A matter of, in the end, which you find out a mistaken identity. But yeah, Odo has his first romance outside of obviously he's pining for Kira and being pined for by Loxana Troy, which is just doesn't really count exactly. But this is great, and he actually has the sex with a corporeal being where he had
solid.
Oh, I'm sorry, we haven't even gotten to the point where this is his first having the sex, because he does end up having the sex with one-on-one with the female shapeshifter next season. Sorry, spoiler alerts. They end up having it human style, which I think is
which is mildly disturbing, but
mildly disturbing, exactly. But then again, if you think about the Great Link, it's a big orgy, quite frankly, because they're all just in there, right? I mean, if you think about it in that fashion, very Greco-Roman.
Who knows? Yeah,
exactly. Cool episode, kind of throwaway. Doesn't necessarily have anything to do with anything.
No, not
but
really.
That being said, I don't think it's terrible to take a break from the heaviness, because we have a lot of heaviness to kick this off, and then we have a lot of heaviness that will wrap up the season, which is coming up pretty quickly.
Yeah, here. As I've usually said, like I'm more of a fan of the longer seasons because we can have filler episodes like this, where we take time to look at a character and have them do things that are important for them, but not plot relevant, because it allows us to develop a character in a way that's more rounded.
Right. I agree.
So this is one of those episodes with Odo. So
really, and if you think about it, we kind of get 3 in a row, because the next episode is really that for another character, which we'll talk about in a second. But yeah, I enjoyed it fine, and it was nice to see Odo get a little bit. And this is even after the time when he's a changeling again, or a few episodes back he was normal human, but he's still able to go through a very humanizing experience of love lost and putting yourself out there. And that's because he has this great scene. One of the looser frameworks around this is that Bashir gets a new holodeck adventure of the Dr. Bashir, which is written by his friend Felix, which I always found was so hilarious, because Felix was James Bond's sidekick in the James Bond films, or one of his associates with the CIA. But yeah, Odo has this talk about taking chances in romance, and it's okay to get your heart broken, because otherwise your heart will break from being lonely. I thought that was a super cool speech. And at the end of that, you do have you have O'Brien show up as Falcon, the guy with the eye patch, says, "Car trouble, Mr. Bashir." Because the whole thing takes place in the back of his limo. So I enjoyed that. So good episode, again, humanizing. But staying on that same thing, we jump into episode 18, which is yours. Sorry, go ahead.
All right. 18, Business as Usual, directed by Siddig Al-Fadil. Written by Bradley Thompson and David Weddle, aired April 7th, 97. Quark's infamous cousin Gala.
The one with the moon?
Cousin Gala has a shuttle. Cousin Gala has a moon. Cousin Gala has everything. So Gala, knowing Quark is desperate for funds, takes him on as a junior partner in his highly lucrative and illegal arms dealing business.
Illegal.
With his mother Keiko away dealing with a plague on Bajor. Is that the right name?
Yeah, Kiriyoshi is the name.
It's missing the K. Kiriyoshi O'Brien will only stop crying when Miles holds him, making working difficult.
I love it. It was a sitcom-y plot thread that
Oh,
totally
yeah.
worked. It totally worked.
Like trying to carry
Yeah,
shit while he's trying to
it
work on
was.
conduits.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my
And
god.
at the end of it, the only thing that calms him down is Worf, which is you get a nice Worfism at the end where he said, "Well, I was never around my son when he was this age. Keep in mind, we haven't seen Alexander post TNG
Yet.
to this point." Yeah, so that was really touching. But it's a minor part, but this was a great episode. Cousin Gala is actor Josh Peiss, I think is his name, who was the only thing I think he was actually one of the Ninja Turtles in the 1990 Teenage Mutant
wow.
Ninja Turtles films. Yeah, along with another actor named Brian Choi or Brian Kim, who was one of his He's got 2 Star Trek connections. He was one of the kids in The Children Shall Lead, and
Yeah.
he played a relief con officer in season 4 of TNG. Boy, my brain, ding, ding, ding. But the guy who was their boss in this was the bad guy in the first Beverly Hills Cop. That was the mental note I made. I know. And Lawrence Tierney, who is very infamous in Star Trek circles because he was a holodeck character in season 1 of TNG called Cyrus Redblock, and apparently was verbally abusive to a young Will Wheaton on the set of that show. Yeah, it's very famously documented in Will's book, which he talked about when he spoke on the cruise. So it had really not, because Lawrence Tierney was just, apparently he always played heavies and mobster guys. Apparently just not a very nice guy, and he's since
typecast in a way.
Yes, very much. Yeah, he plays a warlord, and at the end of it, Quark is so overloaded with guilt that he's making money from selling weapons that are causing the deaths of countless people, that he orchestrates 2 sides of a conflict being in the same room at the same time and running away and basically getting extracting himself from the situation and destroying the arms business that he's now a part of, and making sure that all of his associates are killed, though Cousin Gala does live, and we do see him in subsequent episodes, so sorry about the spoiler. But great. But again, this trilogy of episodes, and really it's a quadrilogy when we move on to the next one, of great character moments, development, our people being pushed to their limits, us learning things about them and digging deep. I think that this episode, and again, it's a Ferengi episode, but it's one with a little bit more
heart
edge and heart.
Like usually Ferengi episodes are corny, which I love, to be completely frank. They're
by
fun.
design. Yeah, absolutely. No, I think they pulled it off well. So I like that. And again, dovetailing into, we're kind of 4 for 4 with the next episode. Episode 19, Ties of Blood and Water, directed by Avery Brooks. So we had Sid in the previous episode. Avery does this one. Looks like we might have gotten something from the slush pile here. Story by Edmund Newton and Robin L. Slocum. Teleplay, so kind of mopping up the spec script, is Robert Hewlett-Wolf, again from April of 97. To Kenny Gamore from the episode Second Skin back in season 3.
Which is a fantastic episode.
Absolutely. Arrives on DS9 and reveals that he's dying. It's a very short summary. Ducat and the return of the fantastic Your Friend and Mine. Why have I just forgotten Jeff Combs' name? Oh my God, Jeffrey Combs returns. And this, we learned that the Vorta are a species of clones. So this is because we believe that his character Wayon did die in season 4 on his first appearance because he was killed by his own troops, which reminds me of a great line. You've seen the movie Animal House, I assume.
I haven't actually.
Oh my God. Well, there's a great bit at the end where they're doing the recap of all the characters. Like, here's what happened in their future. Douglas Niedermeyer killed in Vietnam by his own troops. Pretty much the same. Go see Animal House. Now you have an assignment. that is a classic. It's Ducat shows up and realizes that this Kenny Gamore, who has been living in exile, he's a revolutionary, and that's why he was kind of taken out of play back in that episode in season 3, has a head full of Cardassian secrets. Ducat wants him muzzled, so he makes this offer, because Kenny Gamore's whole thing is that he's trying to find his long-lost daughter, who is a deep cover operative. The Cardassian government set up this flim-flam where they made it look like... So Ducat says, hey, if you come home, I know where your daughter is. Like he's... Yeah. And Gamora says, "You know what? If you had come to me like man to man or
Yeah, he is-
Kardashian
he is-
minion now, and if I make a deal with you, I'm making a deal with them. I'd rather just die. Is that okay with you?" Goes to Kira and says, "Hey, you know what? He was also actually at this camp that did this thing that I wouldn't, I would. Yeah, yeah. What do you think? Eh? Throws an ashtray at. Yeah, it's bad.
They
It's
should
bad.
probably give him up.
First with flashbacks from Kira as a teenager, where she's huddled in a cave with Owned.
Yeah,
and she's standing by his side.
Ducat is
when,
the
we do get
sleaziest
the return
of scumbags villains. He's
I'm drawing a blank on his name. Great actor though,
but he
died. But he comes in and he says, "Hey, we got this mission that we can go hit such and such in Shaq because I have a chance to avenge your." It turns out avenge your death. Nerys, don't leave me. And then she comes back and he died while she was gone. And so, because Gamora is a father figure, but she's angry with him, but then she realizes, and Gamora was like 18 years old when he was attached to this involved per se. So she forgives him, then he dies. So she buries Gamora on Bajor right next to her father, her biological father. So Kira has this great two take with Odo where she's and so I was to have difficulty quantifying that with this situation. Spread for her. I thought it was really well done. Yeah. It's what he does. Oh my goodness. Got the schmuck. Oh my goodness. Well, that takes us out. We're doing a least favorite. I already went on record and potentially agree with me, but if you feel different, love to hear it. Two-parter, which does deliver the Cardassians into the other big reveal.
This is a really good. I mean, the relationship that Kira has with Tekeni Gamor is just really solid over the two episodes that he exists.
I have it, and I listened to maybe the first chapter, and I really.
And so it's just really interesting how she took to heart the fact that he wanted to be a father figure to her in
but yeah, that's my number one favorite.
And then you see it's a very, very good, paternal,
but I would probably say
relationship that
a simple investigation,
parent to child
because it was kind of low stakes, no stakes
in this episode, especially with her getting mad at him, and all of that, and then there's reconciliation,
kind of maybe sort of. So
and there's some really, really, really good character moments in this episode. And then there's Ducat being a schmuck like normal. So, yeah, it's classic Ducat. Ducat the schmuck.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it just yeah. Yeah.
We forgot to mention that, which is also explored extensively in Andrew Robinson's book, where he reads it. Which is
all right.
fantastic.
Well, we jump into.
I listened to the whole thing. It's great.
3. So we'll be jumping into our last 7-pack of episodes. So we'll be wrapping up DS9 next week around. So
that's fun.
Peter, thanks for joining us. Everyone, thanks for listening in. Peter, where do people find you out there?
Yeah. Yeah, kind of, maybe, sort of. Yeah.
Nice.
I kind of want to go with Ties of Blood and Water as being my favorite.
Oh my.
I just really like that relationship between Gamora and Kira. It's just really solid.
Oh my God!
This may have been one of Avery Brooks' first episodes that he directed. It's great. It's a really good episode. Least favorite.
Good deal.
I would agree with you that simple investigation is probably the
I love
least
it.
in
Good
terms
deal.
of just it doesn't
well,
do much.
as always, you can find me over on Instagram and Threads.
For me,
at
my
the
least favorite
C3
might be Dr. Bashir, I presume, just because I'm still just not a fan of the
very, very active
genetic
on the
engineering
Discord,
plot
for
reveal.
Secret Friends Unite.
The episode's fine. The episode's
and of
good.
course
It's just
our,
I don't
United
really
Trekkers of
like that
Michigan,
story
which is
element when it got brought in.
Discord that April and I
And so
started
just
up.
for that
We
reason
also are
alone.
starting
But if we're
up
going for like
Facebook
the reasons
group
that you were
called
picking
Geeks and
17,
Sneaks,
I would
which
have
is
to go
just
with
about
17
people
too.
who are passionate about not only geek culture, but alternate to that, also just physical fitness, where we're going to talk about our journey of getting in shape, playing pickleball, going for long walks, bike rides, things like that. So, but that's it for this time around, friends. As always, thank you for joining us. I'm going to tell you that sharing is caring. Keep on trekking.
Well, you can find me around the interwebs at Petrus Aquinas. I'm mostly active on Discord, where you can find me on the Grand Petoskey channel or the Secret Friends Unite channel. You can also find me on ELH's Twitch and YouTube page, where we are going to be starting a new RPG game with Star Trek Adventures using the brand new 2nd edition rule set. I have no idea who I'm playing yet, because I have not decided, but you'll hear about it next time, I'm sure. And then you can also find me behind the scenes on Starship Excelsior, which has a new episode as of last week. So it's a great show. I'm only in as a voice. Like I'm a lead in a very, very short episode, and then I'm background voices in like 2. So, but I do transcription for the rest of them. That's my behind the scenes. Peace and long life.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and podcast services around the galaxy, as well as video on our YouTube channel. You can support Secret Friends Unite by becoming a Patreon member, get bonus programs and more over at patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. Join our Discord community for even more discussions on all things geek. For all the latest updates on Secret Friends Unite, make sure to follow us on Threads at secret.friends.unite and visit secretfriendsunite.com. Find our merchandise at TeePublic and Redbubble. Thanks for listening, and may the Force live long and prosper.